Today, each of you will recognize yourselves, see things from the outside, and understand what's really going on. Why are we stuck in one place? Why do we suffer? Why do we get sick? Why do we lack confidence? Why is there no love? Why are there illnesses? Why don't we feel joy in life? It's like someone just sucked it all out of us, right? In reality, the whole problem is right here. Can you hear it? Yes? Can you see me? Great. Today, we're going to talk about parents, about parent-child relationships, specifically in the context of the psychosomatics of our health. And I want to start with a story. I love stories because stories are the truth. They're about life, they're about real people, not just some textbook material, right? That's what's truly real. A young woman I know, she has everything going for her. A husband, kids, money. She lives in a nice city. What more could you want? Yeah, everything seems fine, but she has these allergic reactions, rhinitis. Her nose is always running. She's constantly taking pills and using nasal drops. Well, can you live with that? Come on, what's the big deal? Everything's fine for you. So you use some nasal drops a couple of times. Sometimes you get a headache. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Everyone does. But she came to me with something else. Her son is an athlete, and his legs started hurting. Well, you might think, of course an athlete's legs hurt. It makes sense. He's running around, doing his sport. She says, well, his legs just hurt, and I want to keep encouraging him in sports, but I don't understand what's going on with him. There don't seem to be any symptoms. The doctors say everything's fine with the boy, but his legs really do hurt. They ache and twist. And she says, maybe I've got some psychosomatic issue hidden somewhere? I say, no problem. We'll figure it out. So I send her to do a practice. Don't just believe. Check for yourself. I already told you a little about this last time. And the second practice is forgiving your parents. After this practice, she calls me, crying her eyes out. She was all teary-eyed, crying her heart out, you know? And she says, what was that even about? I'm in shock. I didn't know this story. And she tells me that, as it turns out, she hardly ever saw her dad. He left the family very early, and she was kind of raised by her stepfather. Yeah, how does that ever happen? And so her biological father, she doesn't know him. After that session, which was all about working through things, forgiving her mom, forgiving her dad, letting go of her feelings, emotions, and memories, she says, it just completely unraveled me. She says, it's like I was just stripped bare on the inside. I realized that I'm afraid, that I feel scared, that I don't feel safe next to my husband, that it turns out I can't trust him, I can't speak up. And every time we argue or there's some family issue, I just stay silent. Right. That's why her nose reacts, because she doesn't like it. She feels anxious, like he might leave, abandon her, something might happen, even though he never says anything like that to her. Again, I'm telling you, it's a normal, wonderful family, right? But I just don't feel safe. I got an image of my dad, and I cried about it. That's what I was missing in my childhood. That warmth, that love, those feelings. She was overwhelmed. I said, it's okay, this is part of the process. She said, it's actually good that I'm just sitting here, crying, not even sure why, when everything's fine for me. I said, that's normal. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. After a while, she starts telling her husband what she likes and doesn't like, that she wants to start her own business, things like that in her life. The atmosphere in their relationship gets tense. They even start thinking about divorce, like there's something they need to divide up, something they need to do. But then, thank God, her husband comes to his senses, and so does she, and they sit down together. I'm not saying it's just one of them, right? The two of them sit down at the negotiating table together, remember that they still love, value, and respect each other, that they need each other, they forgive, and their marriage moves to a new level of relationship. Her allergic reactions in the nose area go away, right? The child's leg problems go away too, because that was her fear of moving forward, in some direction where she had suppressed herself. And most importantly, after some time, her biological father writes to her. He somehow found her. I don't even know how. And she wrote to me about it. Here I am, going to meet him. What an incredible story. When I hear stories like this, I get goosebumps. I just can't help it. It's just something unbelievable, isn't it? Now let me tell you another story. When it comes to family, when it comes to forgiving parents, these are always such deep topics. Another girl comes to me. She's had skin problems, a skin disease, breakouts, almost since her teenage years. She's constantly using ointments, always on antihistamines, always taking medication, and nothing helps her. And now she's already lost hope. She came to us and said, well, maybe you can help me? What does your psychosomatics say about why my skin is suffering? Why? What's good about this? I'm suffering. It's just uncomfortable for me to live. And she starts with the practicum, since that's the first program that's a good entry point before moving on to my deeper, year-long program, right? And again, she does this technique of forgiving her parents. And what does she find? She uncovers a very deep situation. It turns out, she wasn't raised by her biological parents at all. She was raised, well, how do you say it? By adoptive parents, right? What's the word for it? So her mom and dad, well, not her real ones, just the people who raised her. And her whole life, she lives with the feeling that her parents abandoned her. That she's not needed, that she's not important. And so she looks at herself and asks, why? And she says, this question has tormented me my whole life. Why did they do this? Why did they act that way? What's wrong with me? Am I somehow bad? Is there something wrong with my face? Why was I abandoned? Of course, it's not like she thinks about this every minute of every day. People have their own lives. But every now and then, this thought just comes back to her. And in this practice, yes, since we work with images there, it's a deep trance-like process where you work. She tells me, after this practice, I feel calm. It's like that question doesn't come up as strongly anymore, but I still worry a little bit. But deep down, I understand that I need to find my biological parent. Before that, she had been trying for 5 years, searching, doing something about it. So it's not like she was doing this for the first time, but she says that after working through this technique, I was able to find my real, biological mother. I come to her city, we meet. And it turns out, the real story is that she didn't abandon me. Those were hard times, and her relatives took the child away from her. They took me, and that's how the situation happened. So it wasn't that she gave up her child. And she says, we met, we cried together. Her mother has her own family now, and she doesn't interfere or anything like that. But after that, she felt a certain peace inside, an understanding of what was really going on, that she mattered, that she was needed, that she was valuable. Her skin started to heal. What an amazing story. Right. Leave a comment, give a reaction. Does what I'm telling you resonate with you? Honestly, it gives me goosebumps. And now, let's talk about our parents. Why is this important for us? Why can't we reach a new level without working through issues with our parents? And I studied at different schools of psychosomatics. I've been involved in psychosomatics for 10 years now, actually started learning even earlier. And you know, they never really talk so openly and directly about parents. There might be some moments, some conflicts, but it's always about some kind of stress. And only when I started practicing myself, when people started coming to me for consultations every day, when I opened my own school, did I realize that it's impossible to heal an illness without working through issues with your parents. Why is that, Tada? Let me explain. Our parents aren't just the people who raised us. They're our first hypnotists, our first programmers, the ones who programmed us with ideas about what the world is like and how we need to be in this world in order to survive. They taught us how we need to be in this world to be loved, valued, and respected. What we need to be like in order to achieve something in this life. If you sit down quietly and write out, what kind of person do I need to be? What kind of person do people accept or not accept me as? And what price is important? That's it. Just by asking yourself these questions and writing it all down, you'll realize these aren't your own thoughts. This is what you grew up with. That's why parents give love. They provide safety. They set boundaries, right? A sense of being needed, valued, and in touch with your own emotions. That's in the best case scenario, or they don't provide these things. And then what happens? I don't feel loved. I don't feel valuable. I don't feel important or significant, and I don't know where my boundaries are. And then people invade those boundaries, trample all over them. And then I end up with something like cystitis, for example, when I can't assert myself. You know. No, I'm telling you no. Why? Because I just don't want to deal with you. Or don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. But I stay silent. Someone crosses my boundaries and I feel uncomfortable. After a while, yes, I might end up with cystitis, for example. If I react, it's like a conflict over personal boundaries. That's the first thing. Second, our parents live out their own pain, their dreams, and their fears through us. And that's also a very important point. You all know perfectly well. Raise your hand here if you were sent to some college or job just because your parents said, this will be better for you. And since you couldn't resist as a child, you went along with it. And now you wonder, why do I even want to do something else? Yeah, for example. Or parents say, no, that's bad for you. You need to be completely different. Right. Don't do this. Do something else. In other words, they suppress our dreams. They suppress certain things about us. Again, I don't want to say anything bad about parents right now. Don't think that I'm some kind of aggressor. I just want to show you what's happening inside you. Okay? Our fears. Here's a classic example. Moms, wave your hand here too. When we want to say, I'll send my child to the very best school, to the very best kindergarten. He'll wear only the best clothes. That's just crazy nonsense. What does the best even mean? Where's the worst? People are always comparing it to their own childhood. Like, what happened to me? There was no money, right, no clothes, or I went to some terrible school. Or maybe there was some childhood trauma, and now I want to make sure my child never goes through that. And on the one hand, you might say, Vadym, are you out of your mind? What are you even talking about? Isn't it a good thing for a child to have everything they need? Yes, but there's just one small catch. This isn't really about the child. They don't know about your past experiences. And in trying to protect them, we often end up hurting them. A lot of the time, we're actually shielding them from things that don't even exist. That's why, when moms come to me and say, my child is sick, I always tell them to start with themselves. Right. It's you who's trying to protect them from some kind of pain. Recognize yourself in this, don't you? Now, the next thing. Talk on the level of emotions and feelings. This is also very important, because we weren't taught how, and now we don't know. What do? We feel scared, or we're afraid. Is it even normal to be afraid? Is it normal to have the opposite feeling? In general? That's it. Here, you need to switch to your Russian account. There you go. Is it normal, for example, to say no to someone? Then I disagree with something, or I have completely different feelings, completely different emotions. Is that normal? It is normal. But often we're afraid. And again, there's this feeling. Raise your hand if you relate. I want to be good. I want to be accepted. Oh, I don't say anything to my husband, or to my boss, or to my coworker, or my neighbor. Well, she might get offended. I just don't like hurting people's feelings. What kind of nonsense is that? Someone gets offended because they're hurting you or making you uncomfortable? What do you mean? Why should they be offended by that? If you're feeling any discomfort, you should immediately say, whoa guys, something's off. This doesn't work for me. This isn't meaningful to me. This isn't important to me, right? Do you get what I mean? There you go. Is that too much? Are you keeping up? So, moving on. Let's talk more about strategies now, how this actually shows up in our lives. I'll explain using examples. We've established that parents are extremely important. Now let's get more specific. Instagram started a little later. I accidentally logged into an English language account, so now we're getting started. I'm talking about the topic of parents, about psychosomatics, about the programs that actually harm and destroy our health. And I didn't even realize I was streaming in English until someone messaged me in English, please. That was pretty funny, yeah? Alright, let's start from the very beginning. Why do we need a mom? Mom. So, what does a mom give us? A mom gives us a sense of safety. A mom gives us a sense of love. A sense of love, a sense of safety, a sense of feeling ourselves. In other words, it's our connection to our feelings, it's our connection to our emotions. But if, for example, the mom was anxious, the mom was worried, the mom didn't have time for me, the mom was busy with her own things, her own circumstances, her own dramas, her own soap opera. What does the child feel? They feel anxiety, they feel anxious. What might they experience? They might have gastrointestinal problems, because I don't accept, I can't digest, I'm living in chronic fear, right? I have this anxiety. I might have disruptions, I might have skin problems, I might have trouble sleeping, I might have panic attacks, I might develop autoimmune diseases. And all of this is because, in childhood, I didn't develop a foundation or layer for a sense of safety. And now, as an adult, a person might think, oh, what kind of stress is causing my gastrointestinal issues? What kind of stress is triggering my panic attacks? But the roots go much deeper, actually. For example, the mother wanted to have an abortion. The mother wanted to have an abortion, right? And what is that? This person doesn't remember that their mother wanted to have an abortion, but they live with a deep sense of bitterness. Inside, they feel like this world isn't for them, that they don't have the right to love, that they don't have the right to deserve anything. And of course, they'll have psychosomatic issues, like I mentioned, problems with the gastrointestinal tract, headaches, and issues with the musculoskeletal system, because there's a constant feeling of guilt. Because of what? Because I'm not important, I'm not accepted. But in reality, that's not true. Yes, the mother didn't want it. Maybe when she found out she was pregnant, she got scared. But she still gave birth, she still, as they say, raised this person. And these are the kinds of traumas we often work on healing in my programs, for example, in the basics course. Or, for instance, situations where the mother didn't provide support, meaning she wasn't an adult, she was like a child herself, right? Or maybe she was just constantly being tossed back and forth emotionally, or her father was always putting pressure on her, they were always fighting. So for those who have this image in their mind that their mom is a victim, that their mom is suffering, so what happens then? That's when the hierarchy gets thrown off balance. So what do I have to do for my mom then? Save her. But then this person grows up and ends up not just saving their mom, but trying to save everyone. They worry, they get involved in everything. I have to, help everyone. They might develop breast issues, for example, if it's a woman, right? She might have problems with her spine, because she's always feeling like she can't keep up, can't manage everything. I have to constantly save everyone, help everyone. Do you see what I mean? Tatiana, let me answer you right away. Tell me, please, what happens if I had an abortion? Look, if you had an abortion, actually, any woman who's had an abortion, there's an inner sense of guilt that needs to be addressed. And even if you think you're calm or neutral about it, that it doesn't affect you at all, that you just went and had an abortion, it's like going out for a cup of coffee. Believe me, deep down, on a subconscious level, there's a huge sense of guilt and self-rejection. I've been working with topics like abortion for 10 years. How does this show up? In gynecology, very often after this, we see ovarian cysts, gynecological problems, issues in relationships with men, problems with conceiving, because that guilt is still there. At the workshop on the 1st, I'm telling you again, on the 1st, set yourself a reminder. At 10 o'clock sharp, registration opens for the workshop, don't believe it? Check it out. It's a month-long course, with lessons released twice a week, and the 4th lesson will be specifically about working through grief. So you need to work through your abortion, so your body can finally exhale, so that guilt can be released, so your body stops holding on to that feeling of guilt, and you stop trying to numb it. I'll be honest, I've done a lot of work on this. For example, let me tell you a story. I still remember this girl vividly. A tall, beautiful model walks into my session, just stunning, really. And she says, Vadym, everything is great with me. Everything is just fine. But what about these cysts I have? She asks. Why do I have them? What's actually going on? I say, well, let's talk about loss, about grief. She goes, what? No, I haven't lost anyone. Everything is fine with me. Don't make things up. I don't respond. You know how people say, that doesn't resonate with me. Are there any other options? Can I see the whole list? It's like the person is flipping through a menu. Do you have any sandwiches at your cafe too? I say, no problem. If it doesn't resonate, that's fine. I say, let's do a practice together now and see what's really there. We start doing the exercises. And what comes up is exactly the feeling of guilt for being young and inexperienced and having had an abortion. Yes, it was the wrong man, the wrong time, the wrong circumstances. She was either 17 or, I don't remember exactly how old, but she was young and naive. And then she just starts sobbing. It was something awful. It was like an exorcism had started. I said, of course, there were no losses, no grief. It was just an accident that happened. Of course, guys, this always stays inside. The most important thing is that there are tools and techniques to work through all of this. After that, her condition started to improve. But besides the physical changes, what else happened? She entered into a deeper relationship. She later wrote to me, Vadym, you know, I'm actually starting to think about settling down with one man and building a family with him. So now I realize that before, I was afraid because of that past experience, where the man didn't support me. And a man's support is very important. It's crucial at any stage of a woman's life. It doesn't matter whether she had an abortion or not. It really doesn't matter what she did. There always needs to be a man by her side who says, I'm with you, I support you. Is that right? All the women nodded. They nodded with some emotions. No, I'm not saying that just because you had an abortion, you're guaranteed to have problems with your breasts or with a gynecologist. I'm just giving you an example. You need to understand that Psychosomatics doesn't mean we're all biorobots. Biorobots, yeah, all the same. Let's say there are 10 women. 10 women had an abortion. And these suppressed feelings will show up differently for each of them. That's exactly what I'm trying to explain to you. When you're sick or experiencing some kind of discomfort, and someone tries to fit you into a mold, saying you're just like everyone else, like those 10 women in the same situation, that's simply not true. You're all different. Each of you has your own story, your own dynamics, you see? So let's get back to the topic of your mother, okay? What I mentioned earlier. That's why, if in your life, first of all, you have anxiety, worry, panic attacks, you don't understand your own feelings and emotions, you don't accept yourself, you can't love, you can't feel other people. You're constantly in your head, always thinking logically, meaning when there are no feelings, it indicates that in your childhood you became separated from your mother, you lacked support, warmth, and attention. Your mother didn't give you that connection. This is one of the main reasons I always start with. But that's not the only possible reason. There could also be some stressful or traumatic event, something that really pulled the rug out from under you, and as a defense mechanism, your body separated you from those feelings so you wouldn't have to feel them. But I would still check the issue with your mother. Yeah, does this resonate with anyone who remembers their connection with their mother? So try to remember, what was your experience of connecting with your mother like? Now let's talk. Everything you're saying is true. Of course, like I said, I'm not making this up. I'm talking about real situations, real cases. It's really good that you're noticing this now. Because when we understand the cause, we have the chance to heal it, to get out of this state. So it doesn't matter what your mother was like in the past, what she gave you or didn't give you. Right now, you can change all of that by working with your subconscious. I'll explain how this works a bit later. Next point, father. What does a father give us? A father gives us the drive to move out into the world. That's society, that's rules, that's confidence, right? So if there was no father, or if he was aggressive, or on the contrary, if he was kind of a pushover and your mom belittled him. In general, he did not provide this support, this foundation. How does this show up? Fear of the future, lack of confidence, little gray hair. I'm afraid of everything. I can't move forward. Like, I want to earn more, have more of this or that, maybe an apartment, a house, whatever. But I can't go for it, I'm scared. Why? Because there's no inner support. And the person is like, I have self-esteem issues. What should I do? What do I do? The first thing is to restore that image of the father within yourself. Without that support, you end up with pain in your legs, joint pain, back pain, even hormonal imbalances, and possibly thyroid problems. Again, why is that? Because I'm insecure, so I rush around, I hurry, I feel like I have to get everything done, I have to do it all. Notice how, when a person is confident, they're calm. Some things work out, some things don't. It's all fine, they stay calm. But when someone isn't confident, they're always in a rush, always hurrying, trying to do 1,000 things in a minute. In the end, nothing gets done, and they beat themselves up, blaming themselves. And that's the vicious cycle. Do you agree? You know what I mean, right? These are the two basic things we need to understand together. Now let's break it down specifically according to the laws of the family line and see how this can show up. I want you to take a look at yourself. Right now, I'll talk about the patterns, yes, Solechka, and then I'll explain how to work through them. First, I'll describe what these patterns are, so you can look at them from the outside. So, the first pattern is called a violation of the law of hierarchy. Not hierarchy, but place, your place in the family system. That is, every person has their own place, like the father, the mother, and so on. It can't not exist. But if, for example, in my parents' relationship, my mom would belittle my dad and say, "Dad is no good. Dad is just a doormat. Honestly, I don't even know. It's just awful. He's not a real dad or a real man." How does this show up? If it's a boy growing up, how might this manifest? This might show up as him becoming a responsible man who takes everything upon himself. Why? So that he won't be like his dad. He doesn't even remember it anymore, but every morning he wakes up already feeling anxious, thinking he has to keep pushing himself, and he'll experience a lot of devaluation in his life. Why is that? Because he's afraid of being weak like his dad. Will he have problems in relationships? Yes. He'll end up finding a wife who nags him all the time. Like, you can't even hammer a nail. You can't do this, you can't do that, right? If it's a woman, how might this show up? A girl, yes, when the mom used to belittle the dad. She'll be a woman who has a negative attitude toward men, thinking they're all kind of lame. Well, mom said so. This program has already been internalized unconsciously. What conditions are needed for this program to take hold? It has to be people we trust. Yes, our mind is open, and bam, it gets in. And then it seems to you that this sane woman is thinking, "Oh, what about these men? What can you expect from them? They're absolutely useless. I don't know, I had one. Thank God I kicked him out myself. At least now I'm living. At least there's that. Yeah, I work 5 jobs. Yeah, there's no time to rest. My head hurts, my back hurts. So what? From them or him, what do you get? Nothing, right?" So this becomes the image of a woman who takes everything on herself. Why? Because the man is weak. You can't rely on him. You can't trust him. What role will I be in? I'll be in the male role. So, a woman needs to have balance. There should be more feminine energy, and just a little masculine. But when I need to be a man, when the men are no good, what am I supposed to do? I'll be, so to speak, a man in a skirt. If, God forbid, a real man comes close to me, someone who's ready to take responsibility for me, someone I feel safe with, and so on, then what? I'll either drive him crazy so he runs away, or I'll create any conditions necessary for the relationship to end. I'll start looking for something wrong in him, bad. Why? Unconsciously, not safe. Why not feel safe? There's a childhood experience that's been imprinted. Does this make sense? Are you with me? I see you running around. Put a plus sign in the chat if you agree. Be honest, yes, Vadym. That's cool, interesting, keep going. Or, what are you talking about? What nonsense is this? All men are jerks. Why defend them? Go ahead and write that too. So I was at the gym, chatting with a girl. A young girl. And she says, "I don't have a relationship right now," and so on. I meet some guys, and first of all, she's a workaholic. So again, she can't relax. Let me tell you a bit more about her situation. She is a woman in her early 30s, living in a bustling city where everyone seems to be constantly on the move, chasing after their ambitions and dreams. Her career is incredibly important to her, and she has always been driven by a strong sense of purpose and dedication to her work. From a young age, she was taught that success comes from hard work and perseverance, and she has taken that lesson to heart. As a result, she often finds herself working late into the night, answering emails, preparing presentations, and making sure that every detail of her projects is perfect. Her colleagues admire her for her commitment and reliability, and her boss often relies on her to handle the most challenging assignments. However, this relentless focus on her career has come at a cost. She rarely has time for herself, let alone for building and maintaining romantic relationships. When she says, "I don't have a relationship right now," it's not because she doesn't want one, but because her schedule simply doesn't allow for it. She has tried dating apps and has gone on a few dates here and there, but it's always the same story. She meets some guys. They seem nice at first, but eventually, her work commitments get in the way. She might have to cancel plans at the last minute because of a work emergency. Or she might be too exhausted after a long day to go out and socialize. Over time, this pattern has made it difficult for her to form meaningful connections with others. Despite her best efforts, she can't seem to relax. Even when she does have a rare evening off, her mind is still racing with thoughts about work. She worries about upcoming deadlines, unfinished tasks, and whether she's doing enough to advance her career. This constant state of tension makes it hard for her to be present in the moment, whether she's alone or with someone else. She envies people who can leave their work at the office and truly unwind, but for her, that's easier said than done. Sometimes she wonders if she's missing out on something important. She sees her friends getting married, starting families, and building lives outside of work, and she can't help but feel a pang of longing. She tells herself that there's still time, that she can find balance eventually, but deep down, she knows that something needs to change. For now, though, she continues to pour herself into her work, hoping that one day she'll figure out how to relax and open herself up to the possibility of love. In conversations with her friends, she often downplays her struggles. She might say, "Oh, I'm just really busy right now," or "I'm focusing on my career," but the truth is more complicated. She wants to find someone who understands her drive and can support her ambitions, but she also knows that she needs to make space in her life for that to happen. Until then, she remains caught in a cycle of work, exhaustion, and longing, unsure of how to break free. When I feel ashamed to receive, like when someone praises you, does something for you, or gives you something, how do you feel about that? Is it comfortable or not? Let's check. Raise your hand if you have trouble receiving. For example, I used to have this issue too. I couldn't accept things. Well, maybe I'm joking, but honestly, I really couldn't. I felt ashamed. Then I realized when I worked through the energy exchange topic with my parents, everything got back to normal. Now people give me gifts and more. Just the other day, my wife and I were out hiking, and we stopped by a cafe. We said, "Can we have a bottle of water?" We didn't have any cash on us, only a card. She said, "I'm closing the register, but just take the water." We offered to pay later, but she insisted, "No need, go ahead." We returned to pay her later. I said, "Let me pay you or do something to make up for it." She said, "No, it's all good, just go. Everything's fine." Before, I would have gotten all worked up, feeling guilty, like I had to do something for this person. How so? Now I think, well, why not? I can help people too, and I do. I help. Why not? And just like she does it, I accept it from her with gratitude. You see, it's just a small example. But there are bigger examples. For example, people who work on energy exchange. Some get gifted cars and apartments. Yes, I love it when people praise me, when they give me something. But I feel this sense of obligation, that shame in accepting, that emptiness inside. That means the energy exchange in your life is out of balance. How does this show up? When you were a child, if your parents always said, "Oh, my dear, we work so hard just to provide for you," or "We don't have any time for ourselves," this is when a child develops the belief that something is wrong with them, that their very existence makes their parents' lives harder. Of course, parents don't do this consciously. They just complain because they don't know how to handle their own feelings. And then the child develops this sense of obligation, feeling like they owe everyone. And I can only relax when my parents are happy. Or I can only relax when my wife or my husband is okay, right? In other words, my sense of peace, satisfaction, love, and happiness no longer depends on me, but on someone else. That's how this sense of obligation shows up. Did I explain that clearly? If there's a sense of obligation, no separation of responsibility, and reluctant to accept it. What do you mean? Exactly what's happening. You wrote it. You haven't separated. That means your feelings and your parents' feelings are fused together. And there's one more important thing I want to mention before I forget. As children, we can never understand that the problem isn't with us. We always take the problem upon ourselves. That's an evolutionary mechanism, because when a child is little, they're completely dependent on their parents. Food, shelter, and so on. So, the child has a black and white way of thinking. When an adult parent judges or scolds a child, they think the child is supposed to come to their senses. Oh yes, parent, how great that you noticed with such complicated reasoning that something is wrong with me, so that I would change and start reading, right? No, the child thinks, I am bad. I don't deserve this family. I don't deserve these parents. Are the parents getting divorced? I am bad. Are the parents fighting? I am bad. And then this person grows up, a girl who believes she is bad. Vadym tells her, say, I love and accept myself. She can't. She cries because inside she sees herself as distorted, as wrong, right? That's the kind of state she's in. You see, this is very important. That's why working through parent-child relationships is necessary for everyone. Now you've learned how you need to work through this. It's not about thinking. It's not about remembering. It's not about that. It doesn't work. That's exactly why so many people go to therapy for years, do all sorts of things, but nothing changes for them. Change only happens on the unconscious level. At the beginning, I gave you 2 examples of why deep practice is what actually brings about change. Here's a little side note. If you're interested in how the unconscious works, Vadym will tell you all about it. Why? Because I spent 3 years studying at the French Institute of Humanistic and Ericksonian Hypnosis. I also studied Ericksonian Hypnosis in Moscow. Yes, I studied classical hypnosis. I learned various techniques for working with the unconscious, so I know how to put a person into a trance state, how to immerse them in a state of trauma, and how to change that. This isn't just a conversation. It's not about memory. It's a much deeper result. That's why, when you see results, when Vadym's clients or students have their diagnoses removed, yes, their lives improve. It's not just because they read a book or, I don't know, some article. It's because there was deep trance work involved. So, when you come to my practicum, which, let me remind you again, sales will open on the 1st. You definitely need to set yourself a reminder. Why? I haven't held this practicum for 1.5 years. It's happening now, and I won't run it again for now, because there are other programs. It's a month-long course, with lessons twice a week, covering 10 key topics. So look, the first topic is childhood trauma. As you realized in today's lecture, and the previous one, this is extremely important. Everyone has a second lecture. That's about forgiving your parents. What does it mean to forgive your parents? It's a deep interaction. In other words, you enter a meditative state with my guidance, yes. I help you do this, and you bring up the images in your psyche that have formed in relation to your parents. This is a very important thing. In this practice, you work with yourself. It's not just, oh, well, I can't change my parents, or my parents have already passed away, or nothing will help. That's it. Leave me alone. I'll just be sick and suffer. Just leave me be. No. You have to understand. All problems are always only inside us. That might be unpleasant, but it's also the solution. So, when you go into a trance state, you bring up the images of your mom and dad, and you observe your reactions to them. You look at what programs have been embedded. You don't need to remember anything. I want you to really hear this. It's not about remembering, like sitting there and recalling the first time I swam in the sea in my swimsuit. No. It's about diagnosing how these images are formed inside, bringing out that trauma, and reliving it. That's exactly why, when I told you about the first girl, how everything seemed fine in her life, but she didn't even realize how deeply the issue with her father was controlling her body, her relationships, and her life. You bring out these images, and everything comes to you right away, and you work through it immediately. You do this under my guidance, again, not on your own. Step by step, you work through it, discussing everything with your mentor. They give you recommendations, whether to repeat this practice or try another one. So, this is deep work. It's impossible to do this on your own, because you always need someone by your side to lean on, to ask questions, to support you. Otherwise, you could spend a long time doing something and get nowhere. That's it. And the next practice is self-acceptance. So, look, childhood traumas, forgiving your parents, self-acceptance. These first 3 lessons alone will completely restore your self-esteem and self-love. Actually, yes, today I also wanted to prepare a topic for you. What is love? In reality, we can only feel love when we have 2 states within us. The first is when I feel safe. If you don't feel safe, you can't feel love, right? And the second is when I can be myself. And that's even deeper. Can I be myself? When? I am not controlled by these internal images when I allow myself to think, feel, and live as I want. And that's when this topic of love really opens up. So childhood traumas, forgiving your parents, and accepting yourself will open up this inner, unconditional love within you. Next, we'll move on to working through grief and breakups. I've already mentioned that this is very important. Many illnesses come from these unprocessed emotions, and everyone experiences grief. We'll also look into fears about health, how they form and why they exist. We'll work through allergies, we'll work through illnesses, and we'll address childhood psychosomatics. And all of this will happen in just 1 month. 10 key practices. And I'll give you these practices to download. You'll go through them, and you'll receive recommendations. At the end, we'll get together, let's say, for a graduation, where I'll once again organize these techniques for you so that you can use them in your life later on. It's a skill, like going to brush your teeth, or, I don't know, going to the gym. Is that clear? So now, there's another very important point I haven't mentioned yet. You're talking about abortion, right? There are a lot of scenarios. You can't cover them all at once, but what we often encounter is people who feel like they're always in the background, who weren't accepted, who weren't loved, right? It's like nobody loves me, nobody accepts me, and it's as if I'm not living my own life. So if anyone feels like that, like they're not living their own life, what's really going on? It's possible that your parents never grieved properly, meaning they lost a child or someone close to them. And those feelings were never processed. And then there was a pregnancy. You came into this world, but you were already born into that emotional background, you see? And now that background is controlling you. That's why during the workshop, you'll work through this issue. I'm talking a lot so you don't get bored with me, and I'm ready to answer your questions. I do offer individual consultations, but usually, even people who come to me for consultations, I first send them to my programs because I don't have the time to give lectures. You'll come to me, pay a lot of money, and instead of working with you, Vadym will be giving you lectures. That wouldn't be right. You need to go through the program first. and then come to me for a consultation. If necessary, I send almost all my clients to the program first, and about 90% don't come back to me afterwards. They say, Vadym, that's it. My symptoms are gone. I understood everything. Thank you. Often, people just come to say thanks, or if there's a particularly difficult situation. But those are rare cases, right? We have people with cancer who work through the program. We assign a curator, so you're welcome to come. This does not replace your primary treatment. Work through your conflicts. Any questions? That's all. I'm waiting. I'm ready. Go ahead and fall asleep. What resonated with you? What things are still unclear? Any questions about the practicum? The cost of the program. Thank you. The cost of the program is 14,000 rubles. It's a 1-month program. I also give you the option to split it into 2 payments. This is the best deal out of all of them. And this is the absolute best introduction to psychosomatics. 10 topics, no fluff. Everything is straight to the point. We start on the 1st of the month at 10 minutes past the hour, Moscow time. Set your reminders. Someone responded about safety. Yes, Yanachka, safety is very important. Where in my life did I lose my sense of safety? What was it? Was it some kind of move? Parents fighting, right? Where was I devalued? When was I joyful and happy, and then suddenly torn away from that state, had it taken from me? Where? What is this about? Family laws? Yes, that's a deeper topic. Family laws. I've just given you a general overview. It's a deeper topic, and we cover it in the family psychosomatics module. For a whole month, we go over family laws, parent-child relationships, and childhood traumas. But in the practicum, you already start working through your family lineage. So look, in the year-long program. If you're joining, are you in the year-long program right now? Message me directly, and I'll get back to you. It's not included in the year-long program, but there's an opportunity to get it at a good price. Message me. Good. Anyway, I've remembered your message. The team will get in touch with you. All right? That's it. Okay. Here's a good question. Tajana writes, so look, avoidant attachment style, right. Right now, in a relationship with a man, I feel like running away. Psychosomatic symptoms have hit me. First it was my lower back. The neuropathic pain eased up a bit. Right after that, my head, neck, migraine. The only way out seems to be breaking up. You can immediately tell that Tatiana is a well-read woman. She's read some smart books on biology, or maybe even gone to counseling. Avoidant attachment style. How impressive that sounds. I have an avoidant attachment style. That's just me joking. Recently, I was having coffee with my girlfriend, an acquaintance. We spent a lot of time together back when we studied together, and so she was just passing through Dubai. I said, let's grab some coffee. She's a really great psychologist, super cool, and knows a lot about all sorts of topics. She's just always learning something new. And she says, I want to find she got divorced, and now she's kind of looking for a new relationship. And she says, I want a decent guy for myself. So, she says, I met this guy here who's into psychology, and on our very first date, he tells me he has an avoidant attachment style. And she's thinking, on one hand, it's interesting to talk to him because he's into psychology. Well, he's not actually a psychologist. He does something else, right? But he's knowledgeable about psychology. But on the other hand, I need a real man. Not this guy who's sitting there saying he has an avoidant attachment style, as if that's some kind of excuse. I just thought that was funny. I'm not talking about you. So, here's the thing. From today's broadcast, what I told you. What's the point? Right now, you actually can't leave. There's no actual man there physically or biologically, but you still can't break away from, first of all, your childhood and parental relationships, your expectations, your dreams. That's exactly why there are so many of these psychological attachments. So it's not really about whether you leave or not. It's about admitting that you're uncomfortable, that you don't agree with this, and that you want something different. Right. Because if you don't work through your inner images, your inner issues, then even if you leave, you'll either be overwhelmed by guilt and come back after a while. That happens, right? Or you'll end up in a new relationship, and there's no guarantee that one will be any better. That's why you always need to start with yourself. Join the workshop. We'll work on childhood traumas, forgiving your parents, and accepting yourself. And we also have a breakup technique there. Once you've worked through all that, then you can go ahead and leave. But until you've worked through all that, I don't recommend making any drastic moves because you'll end up overwhelmed by your emotions. You know when some expert says you need to leave him. You should never say something like that. The person might do it, but they weren't ready. And again, you don't need to ask me whether you should leave someone or not. You're an adult woman. You know for yourself what you need to do. That's how psychologists respond to people. You don't need to ask me. You already know what you need to do. Go ahead and do it. Are you asking me to give you permission to do what you want? I give you permission. Do what you want and take responsibility for your own life. Can we joke around a bit? We can. There you go. I was going to say something, but the thought just slipped my mind about what to talk about next. Okay, let's continue. Migraine on the right side, or even on the left. It could be on the left too. What's the difference? What does a migraine mean? It's about feeling devalued. I'm stupid, I'm incapable. I couldn't do it, I failed. When does a migraine occur? Where are you devaluing yourself? Look, you can give this kind of advice. You need to praise yourself. You need to love yourself. Write pages and pages every day. I'm wonderful, I'm amazing, and so on. Will that work? Well, of course it will. But will that change your inner self-image? If it does, it will take a very long time, years, even decades. But it's better to go into unconscious practice and change that image. For example, I have a third lesson, self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, accepting yourself. You will come face to face with your self-image. Why do you think of yourself as stupid? Why do you devalue yourself? Why is there this kind of frustration? You'll see this image. You don't need to remember it. Your body will show it to you. And then you can work with that state. Is that clear? So, what do you need to do? Work through childhood traumas, forgive your parents, accept yourself, and only then start praising yourself. I'm beautiful, I'm smart, and even when I mess up, that's okay. The more I mess up, the more money I and other people have. Can you say it like that? Yes, when a father leaves without warning, as Zinachka writes. Of course, that creates a sense of insecurity. It all seems pretty clear. It's unexpected, it's a dramatic event, and it's experienced in isolation. That's where your energy is. That's your resource, Zinachka. The second lesson, yes, in the practicum, is about forgiving your parents. This is extremely important for you. Right. Breast cancer is a deep, intense conflict. It involves a disruption of hierarchy and anxiety, worry about loved ones and close people. And it's about dividing up territory. So, it's about divorce, splitting up property. It's when I considered someone like my own child, and they betrayed me, deceived me, or something happens to a loved one. So there's anxiety, there's worry. That's exactly why the cells multiply there. You see? It's hard to handle on your own. You need to work on it. That's it? I would join your program, but I'm leaving. The program is held online. Let's talk about that. Look, from the very beginning, I design all my programs so that you, no matter where you are, in Kai, in Cyprus, I don't know, in Moscow, wherever, can just open your phone. Everyone has a phone. You can listen to a lecture while you're, say, chopping up some tomatoes, making a salad for breakfast, right? You do the practice and then go on with your life. You're not tied down to anything. If you're thinking, oh, I'll do it someday. No, the best time is right now. If this resonates with you, if you feel a connection, you'll be assigned a mentor who you can communicate with anytime it's convenient for you, by messaging. That's why the program was originally designed to be comfortable. It's on an accessible platform, Get Course, with lessons, and you'll even be able to download them later. And some people are writing now, but it's summer. I'm not ready in the summer. What do you mean? Summer is actually the best time. Where are you? In the garden, at your dacha, traveling. Set aside 30 minutes a day for yourself. What? You can't even give yourself 30 minutes a day? Then what's the point of living like that? Why live in a way where you can't even spare 30 minutes a day for yourself? You need to make that time. Otherwise, your life won't change. And yes, right now it's dacha season. There are things going on. But what then? Then it's work. And then you'll never have time at all. Understand, our brain is very cunning, right? It starts making excuses. In reality, behind every excuse, whether it's summer or not, whether I can or can't, there's always something deeper. For example, I'm afraid I won't get results. Why am I afraid that I won't be able to get results? Maybe I tried something before, did something in the past. And now I'm afraid that I'll try again and it won't work out for me. But that's not how it works. You haven't studied with me. You haven't taken my program. You did it somewhere else. Maybe you lack depth. Maybe you didn't have enough support. Maybe it was just that time in your life. That's why you need to understand that your past shouldn't control your present and future. So, everyone who's here right now, you didn't come here by accident. It means psychosomatics resonates with you. You're interested in Vadym and his approach. It means you want to go ahead and try the practicum so that your life can start to change. You're already in the year-long program now, right? We need to get in touch with you to find out which program you're taking, because you need to complete the year-long one first. Go through the year-long program first. So, in the practicum, are the practices different from those in the Fundamentals of Psychosomatics course? Ekaterina, yes. Look, in the Fundamentals course, we don't have these kinds of practices. Once again, in the Fundamentals course, we cover emotions, feelings. We generally talk about the basics of psychosomatics, how emotions transfer into the body, stress management techniques, and so on. Here, let's say, in the practicum, there's a minimum of theory and a maximum of practice. Here we cover childhood traumas, which aren't included in the fundamentals, parental forgiveness, which also isn't in the fundamentals, self-acceptance, working with fears, working with allergies, child psychosomatics, and a universal practice for working through your own conflicts. That's absolutely right. These are two different programs. So, it's kind of an addition. If you've already completed the fundamentals, you can now join the practicum and dive deeper into the topics you have. Oh, here's the question. Tatiana writes, what should I do with my feelings that I blame my son for being born, and that because of this I married his father not out of love, but because I had to. I understand that it's not his fault, but I can't accept it, and I feel ashamed of these feelings. So, what are you talking about right now, Tatiana? What you have inside is a hurricane of emotions. The question isn't about what you should do. You don't need to do anything. Yes, everything has already been done. What you need is to take out these feelings and unpack them. Anger, fear, guilt, disgust, hopelessness. Yes, just take them out. Experience these feelings. Don't keep them inside. This isn't just some single piece of advice. This is a topic that needs to be worked through. So the best way for you is to join a workshop or take the basics course. That's right, yes. Marina writes about how her husband scolded the child, saying that you have to do everything yourself. But we also, in life, yes, sometimes become like robots when our parents tell us that we have to do everything on our own. On the other hand, it's a good trait when a person takes on that kind of responsibility. But at the same time, they don't allow themselves to be weak, to not know something, or to ask for help. And that's very important. Let me tell you something. A lot of our problems with the musculoskeletal system, with our muscles and joints, like when your neck hurts, or your shoulders. By the way, someone mentioned their neck today. I'll talk about that in a moment. Are connected to the fact that we can ask for help, we can ask for support. Who here relates to this topic? Who has experienced this? Who among you, who has strong pain, just can't ask for support, can't ask for help? Why is that? Because inside, we think we have to be strong, but sometimes. Yeah, I was told, if you don't know how to do it, don't even try. But that's just silly. If that's the case, then I just won't try to do anything at all. I take on things that interest me. I'll learn as I go. Yes, you need to develop that. Yes, thank you, Tatiana. She writes, Vadym, your year-long program is amazing. Thank you so much. Every word, every thought immediately helps you see if you have any issues or not. Yes, the year-long program is truly my brainchild, the work of my life. It's 7 months of training, with breaks that last about a year. It covers the basics, family, systems, and even childhood psychosomatics of money. You get everything there. But for now, start with the practicum. Alright. Oh, I wanted to tell you about the neck. Let's wrap up with the neck, because I have a live session coming up for my VIP training program. So look about the neck. Why does your neck get stuck? There are a few aspects to this. Of course, it's about responsibility, right? Taking on too much. The fear that I won't be able to handle it. But there's also another issue, when I can't look in a certain direction because I feel powerless. Why can't I? Because I'm not allowed to. Who usually forbids it? Of course, it's the parents. That's why all the restrictions, all the obstacles that are actually put in the wheels of our life, stopping us from moving forward, have their roots in our childhood. We may like it, we may not like it. But that doesn't change the fact that this is what's present in your life right now. If we want change, to feel love, happiness, support, respect, to be healthy, to have surgeries cancelled, to have diagnoses removed, yes, we will have to look toward the past. We will have to work with the images in our minds and rewrite them, change them. That doesn't mean that if I had a strict mother, I'll just imagine that she was cheerful. Of course, that's not what this is about. It's about the fact that it no longer controls me. It means gaining freedom. It means gaining independence, not reacting today to things from the past. That's what this is really about. And as you can understand, no pills, suppositories, ointments, or even massage techniques or anything like that will help you take out that foundation and rewrite it. And at the same time, you can just go and do it, change your life. Friends, thank you for joining today's broadcast. Write in the comments what resonated with you the most today. Let me remind you once again, on the 1st of the month, that's Tuesday, at 10 a.m. Moscow time, the workshop Don't Believe, Check for Yourself will open. Sales for this workshop are now open. It will last for a month, 2 lessons per week. You'll have a personal mentor assigned to you, because you'll have access to this course, yes. I'll allow you to download the practice materials. So this is the most accessible, easiest step to get acquainted with the Vadym's techniques, to get to know psychosomatics in general, to discover yourself and understand what you're living in. I love this workshop. Honestly, I haven't launched it in a year and a half, but this is a workshop that changes lives. Even now, wherever I go, I meet people who say, Vadym, your workshop, everything changed for me, my health, my body, my overall well-being. That's it. Wishing everyone love and peace. May everyone be healthy. And of course, let's make sure to share our energy exchange. So I gave you a lecture today, and you can share this broadcast with your family and loved ones. Today, we talked a lot about parents. Even if someone just starts to think in this direction, that it's not that there's something wrong with them, but simply that they grew up in certain circumstances, became a square watermelon, so to speak, not by their own choice, then the process will already begin, and changes will start to happen. Do you agree? That's all. Love you all. Thank you.